everybody. It's Amanda Hosenfeld. Welcome to Compliance Live. I have great guests here today.
Jenni Franz and
Michelle Zahowski. Try to say that 10 times fast, please.
And it's your Wonder Twin Power account management team.
Yeah, so I have the whole account management
team
here today. I'm really happy that you guys came in for this special live. It's been a hot minute since we did a live show.
It has been.
So I'm equal parts excited and nervous.
It's been a hot minute since I've been in the office. So.
That's true. You are working hard. Jenni and I still are coming into the office.
Yeah.
A couple of housekeeping things. You know, we have to start off every show by letting you know that Mark from Accounting would like everybody to know that this podcast, this special live edition podcast, is sponsored by ComplianceLive. So thank you to ComplianceLive for offering this space for valuable compliance and ethics related content.
Yep.
Thanks, ComplianceLive.
Thanks, ComplianceLive.
ComplianceLive. So a little bit of housekeeping, additional housekeeping. We initially promised that Nick and Gio were going to be joining us for our show. They unfortunately had a death in the family. So we would like to offer our sincere condolences to the Gallo family, and we're thinking about you.
Thinking about you guys.
And we love you, and we miss you.
Yep.
And so next time you guys can cram into the studio with us.
Yep. Be one big happy family.
Too. So cheers.
Cheers to Grandma Terry.
Oh,
yeah. Hey, everybody. Grab your wine and pull up your chair.
Cheers. Cheers to Grandma Terry. So this, as you might have noticed, is a little bit different format of the show. This is a completely live, unscripted Q&A happy hour extravaganza. So we are going to be going over some compliance in the news articles.
Yep.
We are going to be answering any live Q&A that we have, and so I'm going to be periodically glancing over at this laptop to see if we have any questions, and we already have one, and the question is, where are our masks? You guys want me to field that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So we have been, everybody that is in the studio today, minus Michelle, so me and Jenni, have been coming into the office periodically and wearing masks outside of the office, which I think you have as well.
I really haven't left my house, honestly.
Right. So we are
people.
We are as social distanced, I think, as we can be inside the confines of the studio, and we just didn't feel like a live happy hour would be the same.
No. Plus, I'd have to cut a hole in the mask so I can put a straw so I can drink my WhiteClaw.
Hair and drink.
I think we're all taking extra precautions.
We have,
and we feel safe.
Yes.
In this environment.
Yeah. So we've essentially worked here for the last couple of weeks during the quarantine. So, and but just for compliance reasons, you have an Uber coming.
10 after 5.
And you have an Uber coming.
Same.
And I have an Uber coming.
That's right.
So
let's get it.
Yeah. Cheers. So cheers to Ubers. All right. So who wants to get started with our compliance in the news stories?
Yeah, I will. I'll start us off here. So I pulled something that's prevalent for a couple different reasons. So on January 1st, the California Consumer Privacy Act, so the CCPA, as they like to call it, went into effect, and basically the California Consumer Privacy Act is broadly expanding the rights of California consumers. Just for those who might not know what the CCPA is, because I had
to ask, because we didn't pregame any of these articles.
So
the articles.
Basically, California consumers and requires companies within scope to be significantly more transparent about how they collect and use and disclose personal information. So it went into effect January 1, but they were not going to start enforcing it until July 1st of this year.
Can I ask a question?
You bet.
So this is like GDPR adjacent, right?
It's very similar. So basically it gives consumers more of a right to say, hey, you have my information. How are you using it? You need to tell me. I don't want you to use it. It gives them just more avenues to be able to say, stop using my information. You need to disclose, X, Y, and Z. I need to understand who has access to it. It's just, there's a whole gamut.
That information is easily accessible to the consumer,
Correct.
right? So if I like made an Apple ID or put my information into Google or something like that, they would, Google and Apple or any California-owned business would have to be transparent with me about how they're using my data.
And I have more access to be able to say to you, hey, I don't want you to have my information anymore. You need to tell me who had information, who had access to it, and you need to, you know, confirm once it's gone. I went off this list. There's just so many different pieces of this that they have to comply to. So what's happened is that there's been this coalition of 35, actually it's up to 60 now, advertising groups that sent the Attorney General of California a letter on March 17th, basically saying, hey, we're asking for a deferral in enforcement. So basically that because of the COVID-19, we feel that the state should defer enforcing these laws because we are, you know, given what's going on in this, you know, brand new crazy world, you have a workforce that's been sent home, and not just because they're trying to be careful, but because you, government, have told us that we need to stay home. So, you know, we have less folks that are, you know, resources, including human resources, technical resources, and money, et cetera. So they're saying, hey, you know what, we might not be able to be fully compliant by July 1. So can you push that back?
So they want a delay of the deadline for enforcing this.
They do, and you can kind of see that a little bit. But if you think about it, the folks that are asking for this advertising coalition, how many people are ordering stuff online more and more because they're stuck at home and can't go out?
Oh.
Raise hands for those of you that aren't seeing.
Okay, online every day.
My husband would disagree.
So think about how more prevalent there are. There could be people that have never ordered online that are out there ordering online now because they're forced to. So more of that information is out there. So the Attorney General is basically saying, listen, CCPA has been in effect since January 1st. We're committing to enforcing the law starting July 1. We encourage businesses to be particularly mindful of data security in this time of emergency.
So it's I don't know. That's hard for me to conceptualize because they've known about this law.
Right. They've known about it before
even before January 1st.
Right. So
it went into effect in January. This really wasn't, the COVID-19 crisis hasn't really affected the U.S. since, let's say, mid-March.
So laws don't pass overnight and then are instituted the next day.
Not only has it been in effect since the beginning of the year, the government was allowing them that 7 months to prepare for enforcement. They should have already been in compliance with this
as of January 1.
Exactly.
Right. So yeah, I mean, and their whole point is like, listen, some folks are, you know, the conversation is, I don't think you can use COVID-19 as like a blanket excuse for every single company. So there absolutely could be some unique situations where that could be the case. But you know, one of the companies that are part of this 60 group coalition that sent this letter was the Motion Picture Association of America.
Of course.
So things, you know, super
so
cute.
They gotta be dying right now.
Yeah, super. So I mean, you think about that. They probably had the money, the time, the resources to be where they need to be. Yet they're kind of saying, oh, they want to use this as an excuse so that if for some reason they get caught or they're, you know, whatever, that they would have this kind of out.
So their argument is, since people are now working from home, we don't have the money or the resources to make sure consumer data is protected.
Right. Which, you know what, I think that what we're going to find, or what we are finding, what I'm finding in a lot of what I'm seeing and hearing and reading, is that with COVID-19, you're going to see, it's going to be bringing out the great of companies. You're going to see the best of companies, but you're also going to see the worst in companies. You know,
this qualifies as the worst in companies.
I just think it's an excuse, and it's not complying with.
They're using it as like a cover, I feel
right, like, or just we didn't have
our way out to kind of.
We didn't have our you-know-what together, so it's like, hey, let's use this pandemic, this craziness that's going on in the world, to, kind of cover ourselves in case, something happens. And again, think about how many more people are online and their data is out there now.
Right, so it's a more dangerous time.
How many of you had to sign up? How many of you had to sign up for a GoToMeeting or a Zoom? How much information?
Shay, ma'am.
Exactly. So more and more prevalent right now. So, but again, good in companies and bad in companies, I think, are coming out. And I think that leads really into kind of Michelle's article that she found.
Yeah. So anytime there's kind of a crisis or, an emergency or a situation, there's always ambulance chasers. There's always going to be those people that are trying to profit in a negative way off of, a crisis situation that arises. Right? It always happens.
Yep.
Pretty much never fails. So this particular example is a company based in Florida called Cracksonport. They have actually been charged by the SEC for making false claims regarding their ability to supply N95 masks and similar masks.
Some of the most important equipment that is needed in hospitals as well as other industries.
Yep.
Yeah. Like, would this be the same if a supplier said, we can provide 14 million gumballs to you and then not have the gumballs materialize? Like, it's not a...
That's probably not as serious an example, not a life or death example,
Right, which illustrates why this is.
Exactly.
Right?
So what happened with this one?
So February 27th, Craxson issued a press release saying, hey, we're working with the supplier, negotiating the sale of, a very large quantity of these masks. We're going to have them available to sell. Less than a week later, they issue another press release saying, we have obtained a large supply of these. We are prepared to start taking orders for a minimum of 100,000 masks or more.
A minimum of 100,000 masks.
So if you can't order 100,000 masks, don't even come to us?
Pretty much.
Okay. So what else?
So on the 26th, the SCE temporarily suspended trading stocks for Craxson because it was discovered that not only did they never have these masks.
So they didn't have it in hand, but they did 2 press releases, and the last one actually stated they had the product?
Yes. So they never had the masks on hand to sell. And then also a third-party inspector in Mexico determined that the masks that they were trying to acquire from this particular supplier were substandard and would not have met U.S. quality regulations.
Oh my gosh.
So Crackson's response to this was an 80-page response from their attorneys.
That's not shady. Before you even continue, if I get in trouble and my lawyer has to
write an 80-page essay.
80 pages about why Amanda's not in trouble, Amanda's probably in a lot of trouble.
Amanda's in big trouble at that point. And this is basically their way to try to, COA again.
Yeah.
So basically, in this 80-page response, they said that no one that works at Craxson has profited.
So what actually happened? So what happened when they did this press release?
Oh, so when they issued their initial press release on the 27th of February saying they had these masks, their stock shot up the same day.
Of course it did.
What?
People are profiting.
Somebody's saying we have what the country needs right now, and their stock shot up?
Yeah, imagine that. So their stock shot up, and this lawyer saying nobody that works there profited from this. They didn't do this in an attempt to pump and dump their stock. Direct quote from this attorney in the article.
In his 80-page letter.
Wow. Is that a legal term?
So basically, we didn't profit, so did we really do anything wrong, kind of, is almost the response that they gave back to the SEC. It's just shady. It's shady all around. I mean, you think about it, they're
the moral compass of the people in that company.
Well, and not only the company's being charged and fined, but the CEO as well.
Yeah.
A direct quote from the U.S. attorney from Brooklyn, Richard Donahue, says the defendants sought to take advantage of an urgent national need for life-saving personal protective equipment through a fraudulent scheme designed to line their own pockets. And there's another example of this in the same article of a couple in California who conspired to sell more than $4 million in masks that they never actually owned.
Yeah, so it's not even just companies.
It's like the same
individual.
But it's individual. But But with companies, that's why we have these compliance monitors called the government, called the SEC, because they can catch, and that's why they have these regulations, so that this company can pay for what they did.
It's just kind of, it's really, I read this and it just makes me sick, kind of.
Well, it's Nick's been in the studio a couple of times since this COVID started, and he has said multiple times in his own podcast, The Ethics Experts, if you're not listening to that.
Listen to it, it's amazing.
Yeah, he said that times like these, they don't strengthen a character, they reveal a character.
Yes.
And I think I never really thought about it until we were in a situation like this, where it does really reveal a person's or a company's character.
And what they're willing to do to make $1 or a lot of dollars.
Who do you think benefited from that stock price going up?
Oh, the lawyer said that nobody at that company did, but that CEO had to. I mean,
what page of that 80-page brief did he say that?
I mean, the whole situation seems shady from start to beginning. They say, granted, they may not have known the masks were substandard. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt in that respect. But even so, they issued a second press release saying that they had the masks in hand.
But they did.
So they basically, they just lied.
Straight up.
So there's no, you can't really sugarcoat that. Oh, well, we didn't profit from this lie that we told, so it's okay.
But what the SEC wouldn't get involved if it was just false advertising, right? The SEC is involved because of the stocks. Is that correct? I don't know anything about money.
I think it's both.
Does SEC handle false advertising?
I think that there is Securities and Exchange Commission.
I don't know. If any of our listeners,
if anybody's
let us know.
Chime in.
Please learn us on this piece of it. So, but the thing is, it's like, okay, so listen, there are going to be some companies that are actually going to profit to a certain extent off of what's going on in the world, right?
I think that's fair.
But there are some, for instance, Compliance Line, that do it in a way where they're offering products or services that are relevant to the situation at hand and that can actually provide a valuable service or product that can protect people and, or help, with information or the flow of information, right, or, whatever the case may be.
And in some cases, it's not even necessarily profit. It's us out there, what we've done is, we wanted to make sure that our clients know that, hey, we've done a couple of different pushes. We've done a couple of different press releases.
I mean, one of our first emails to our customers from our account management team was basically a no-cost solution to you, saying this is what we can do for you right now. We can update your directives. So we can,
how do you want us to
reporting? How should we handle these reports?
It's that give it away mentality. Like we want to be helpful for you in this trying time. Here are these resources. Please.
Well, that's something that we would have offered to them at no charge anyway, just like a directive change. Like, when someone calls in talking about COVID-19, this is what we want you to do. This is how we want you to handle it. That's something that, we can make those adjustments. We're just alerting them to that, saying, hey, this situation's come up. We know that I'm sure you've got a lot of balls in the air going, a lot of things going on right now. We work with primarily healthcare companies as well. So here's what we can do for you. Let us help you take some of the burden off.
Right. And there's, and then we did have some situations where we could have offered them, some additional services that could have, help them better. For instance, a separate hotline if they wanted
line or
something like that. So it's like, I've had a couple of my friends, they know what I do and they're like, oh, I bet you guys are really busy, because they understand like 80 to 85% of our client base are healthcare and how they're getting hit. And I'm like, our phone calls absolutely, kind of raised up, and our first offer is this directive, but there are, hey, if you want to do a special line to do a
like a COVID questionnaire,
some companies were setting up basically like a crisis line for their employees.
Right.
So
you need
call
help.
in and say, I need childcare because I'm an essential employee and I still have to go to work.
Like an EAP line.
Right. Yeah. So and that's kind of where we kind of could have had some additional profit that came in, but we, as a company, we say that we care. Like that's our tagline. We care. And it, I always have said this to my folks that came in from larger companies that, we here at Compliance Line don't just talk to talk. We walk the walk as well. And, and working with Nick and Gio to make sure that we had everything laid out and that we're going to offer everything that we can. Just making sure we're covering our costs basically, and making sure that our folks are taken care of. themselves, their teams, and their frontline folks.
So there are definitely ways, basically the point, getting back to the point, is there are ways to support your clients, still make money, but in a way that's not shady, underhanded, and where you're flat out lying.
Right. One of our listeners, thank you so much for answering the question. They said they think that the Better Business Bureau or Consumer Affairs would handle false advertising.
Okay.
So SEC, you're off the hook.
Right. There you go.
Yeah.
So,
we're going to come after you.
Right. So it was more about that, like, big increase in their stock, and then the, not having the product.
Right.
That could be like insider trading stuff. That's
100%.
That's terrifying.
Yeah.
That just the concept that people are profiting individually, maybe not companies like who are trying to pull one over on people, but like individuals are profiting by watching the stock market crash. It's horrendous.
I also find it like nobody at Crackson profited. I kind of find that hard to believe.
No.
A lot of times companies offer, especially public traded companies, offer stock options as part of your employee package a lot of times, especially for higher up individuals.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
those people that are making those decisions to get those press releases out. So what do you have for us, Amanda?
Oh, I have a great article that I'm seriously conflicted about. So I pulled this article from Vice, and it's from April 21st of this month, so a little over a week ago, and it says the headline is "Nurses Across the U.S. Are Getting Fired for Fighting PPE Shortages." Okay. So what's your initial reaction to that? You're mad.
You know why? Because I come from a family of nurses. So I have a cousin that's out there, working in a hospital right now, and I'm scared to death for her safety, knowing that there's this shortage out there. And the fact that somebody got fired because they spoke up about it.
Yeah. What's your initial reaction to that headline?
So, initially I want to be upset at, the company, not the individual. That's just kind of how my brain operates. But if you think about it, this kind of gets into a very gray area because, I should.
Yeah. Let's talk about the article. Yeah. So the article talks about how nurses who are posting outside, like on social media, about PPE shortages, who are bringing in their own personal protective equipment and maybe not even up to standards. Like we've seen pictures of garbage bag wearing or bandana wearing when that obviously is, not good enough for healthcare work.
That's against their regulations right there.
Right. So they're talking about it outside of the company. They're bringing in their own unapproved PPE. Or they're complaining, outside of like a chain of command. Mm-hmm. They're being fired because of this. And when I train new hire classes, one of the biggest concepts that we talk about in the very beginning of training is what is compliance. Right. And I feel like that's really important to talk about before we get into the rest of this article, because compliance is just basically a rule, and are you following it? And if you are not compliant, right? So here's a rule, here's a policy, and if you're following it, you're compliant, you are in compliance, and if you're not following it, you're not. Mm-hmm. So when we look at this article, it's hard for me to go back to what you said, it's a gray area, because the rule is if you have an issue with your work environment, you go to HR, you go to your compliance department.
A chain of command, mostly.
I would imagine that's probably the policy at a lot of companies.
Yeah, it's the policy here.
Exactly.
Yep.
Because why air your dirty laundry?
So are these nurses compliant with those rules?
But here's my initial.
However, if you think about it, the fact that these hospitals, granted it's a new world. We're all, there's crazy things that we're dealing with these days, shortage of all these supplies and stuff. But these hospitals and organizations were basically, they failed first, I feel like. They failed their part of the deal by running out of these supplies and then not providing them to their employees for their protection. There has to be something, I'm sure, in their paperwork, that says, this is our part of the deal, this is your part of the deal, and this is how we work together. Well, they failed first.
Yeah, these doctors and nurses that are being fired were not compliant with the rules, right? Understood. But to your point, the company wasn't compliant
right
in making sure that they got the equipment that they needed to keep
and I feel like there has to be some kind of regulation or law about, like having hospitals operate and have to have, when they have to wear this stuff.
One of my initial questions or thought is like, great, you know what, there is a chain of command, but we all know, because we've heard stories and we've talked to people, how many people are so, especially like if you think about healthcare and in the hospitals, how many of those management or that chain of command is working on special like COVID, focused task force or whatever. How many of them are maybe even available to their people, right? Not that I'm trying to make an excuse for
the organization,
or the nurse, right? Because they did kind of, go against what that is, but there has to be exceptions to rules right now.
Yeah, well, and in this case, I feel like these nurses and stuff, these are the people that are falling on the grenade, that are trying to protect their other, teammates and coworkers that are, that might not have the courage to speak up and lose their job potentially,
Yeah, it's kind of like a modern day freedom fighter almost.
Yeah.
And we're probably going to get emails about
the fact that boiling that down to the most basic terms, then yes.
But the article says that the company, one of the statements that one of the companies that fired a nurse said was, as flexible as we have tried to be, we do have to draw the line when individuals say they won't follow our safety policies. Such disregard puts us all at risk. So I have an issue with this statement because he says, well, we have to draw the line somewhere. Well, why didn't we draw it with the fact that you
weren't providing what was
providing? And I get there's a shortage.
And how is them speaking up about it a safety issue? I think the fact that they don't have it and are having to provide their own and wear garbage bags and bandanas over their faces is the safety issue.
Yeah, and if you are a constant listener to the show, first of all, thank you.
Yeah.
You'll know that I'm a policies and procedures girl.
She's HR girl.
The handbook is on my desk. Like I live and breathe by that policy manual, and there's always kind of a part in every policy that is sort of a get out of jail free card. Yes, this is the policy, but if there are extenuating circumstances that need to be discussed, please contact, X, Y, or Z. So this feels like this might be one of those extenuating circumstances.
Is there anything in the article? Do we know if they tried to follow that proper chain of command first? Is there anything about that and they weren't getting any response, like that? Because I'm curious about that too. Because I would imagine that these people probably went to their superiors first and didn't just, express all of their feelings.
And
even if
it was just their I'm not going to properly use the correct term for,
a direct supervisor.
Yeah, their direct supervisor. Yeah. I was trying to find like the nursing term, but it totally wasn't coming to my head.
So just as an aside, I'll need you guys to send me the links to your articles so I can put them in the show notes. But we will absolutely put all of the articles in our show notes. But it says that one of these nurses was fired from her nursing position in New Jersey for bringing an N95 and gloves to work and refusing to discard them after she was told it violated hospital policy. However, and this kind of adds a new level, however, after she was fired, that company changed their policy and allowed nurses to bring their own N95 masks.
So basically, she did fall on the grenade for her coworkers so that they could do this moving forward.
Yes.
In New Jersey, one of the hot spots of the country right now. So I'd be interested to see any of my compliance line folks out there, my customers that are, that work in maybe the healthcare industry, what their input or thoughts
on this.
Yeah,
an opinion.
We do have a couple of comments, and they're mostly Michelle, like your article.
Oh, really?
So you win the invisible prize.
Yay! Cheers to Michelle.
Right, cheers to everybody. So the article, our listener says, don't forget when we were talking about who profited off of these. The stock market increases. He said, don't forget some of those senators that dumped their stock just before the pandemic.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, kind of an extra layer of
even more shadiness.
Because, of course, they've got
insider
like government.
We're an apolitical show when we have the ability to be, but I agree. I think that that's important. Again, compliance. Is there a rule and did you break it?
Because they're in the government and they make the rules, so they can change it when they want to.
But there are still rules for
the government that found. But again, there's 50 shades of grayness that are out there.
50 shades of government.
It's just crazy.
And we have another comment that said that our listener read where some hospitals are hoarding PPE and thereby preventing other hospitals to be properly equipped. What do we think about that?
I think that they should get a gang.
That's ridiculous.
And
we do not condone vigilante justice on Compliance Live.
But that's how I would roll. Me and Michelle, we'd hop in the car and we'd be like, knocking on the door.
Pew, pew, pew. Yeah, I know, like several weeks ago when this first got started, there was, I don't know if anybody follows Post Secret on Facebook, but it's where people send in like secrets and they don't leave their names or whatever. And there's no context around it.
Sorry,
it's just
on Facebook?
yeah, on Facebook,
okay.
Post Secret. She said, you're going to go log in right now. But like one of the articles, and I posted it on my LinkedIn profile, that somebody sent in an N95 mask, and written on the N95 mask said something to the effect of our management is hiding the N95 masks and won't allow us to have new ones. So I think revealing of character, right? And on one side of things, like, I get the fact that there's a shortage,
and I get why they're scared.
We should be coming together as a country right now. I mean, one of the reasons they issued the stay-at-home order for basically the entire country was to try to flatten the curve so we didn't shred the healthcare system. And now they are working against them. They are working against themselves by doing that.
Right. It's so frustrating because it's like they understand the implications of those
better than some people do.
Right.
Which is
blows
my mind.
Mind blowing. Wow, that's an interesting thing of. But so we don't do vigilante justice and get in a car.
We do not do vigilante justice here on Compliance. We do not endorse vigilante justice.
Right. I also have to go home and make dinner after this, so I don't have time for that.
True.
I don't have time in my schedule for vigilante justice.
I'm really busy with this quarantine and isolation stuff right now. Sorry.
We just let Michelle out of her house to come in and do this.
That's right. And then I got to go back to my cage. I'm sorry, house.
So this is a great opportunity. If you've got questions or comments or want to talk about.
I'm interested in some of my folks maybe out in healthcare there.
I know a couple of people reached out and they're like, will you be taking live questions? And we will be answering to the best of our ability. So, okay, we have a great question. How about nursing home, and I'm reading it exactly the way it's typed. Okay. So, all right. How about nursing home facilities hiding their sick patients and not reporting it? How should entities like these be reprimanded? Are they lying as well? What a great question.
Wow. Well, I mean, if you're hiding something, that's a lie.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
I'm going to say
I mean,
because that's not compliant.
Yeah.
Again, it's just
And are you lying to their families? Who are they being notified? Do they even know? Or, I mean, how are you hiding these people too? Like, and also, why are you hiding them? Are they getting treatment? I mean, like, this leads to a lot of questions in my mind, honestly.
So I want to take the opportunity to, again, kind of promote the show, but in January, Kaylin and I did a show about governmental changes to nursing home regulations.
Yep.
And one of the regulation changes was that there no longer needed to be a full-time or even a part-time infectious disease employee at a nursing home.
So it could,
so it could be, now these laws were stop tapping, whatever it is you're tapping.
It's the thinking putty, I'm thinking.
You're right, that's my fault. So they passed a law last year that said they're rolling back the restrictions. So I think that the verbiage, we can go back and listen to the tape, but the verbiage is there had to be somebody with like a knowledge of the facility could also act as their infectious disease specialist.
So anybody that worked there.
That's so scary.
It didn't even have to be a part-time employee.
Wow.
Yeah. So to spend a couple hours a week, a month at the facility and that was good enough for infection control.
I hope this pandemic and what's going on now and what they're seeing out there makes those folks that did that change take a second look.
Every time we talk about nursing homes, so thank you for your question, because I think this is really important.
It is.
I think about that episode that we did and how nobody was paying attention to those small little regulation rollbacks
until now,
because there wasn't a pandemic. And now that there is one, we're thinking maybe that wasn't such a good idea. Maybe they need to at least be a part-time employee.
And those are the most vulnerable.
Yes.
Those are the most vulnerable. You know, I sit and I think about, you know, I'm lucky I'm able to kind of take care of my mother in home. And I just, you know, I think about those folks that are in the homes and, you know, being treated like that. And yeah, they really need to take a look at those regulations that they rolled back, and something definitely has to change.
Some of those places really aren't like the nicest to be in with.
So how should nursing homes handle this from here? Should they report their numbers?
Absolutely.
Oh, I think
everyone should be reporting.
You know what?
I agree. I'm just trying to get here.
If they have a moral compass that they actually care about their people, they care about the industry. I mean, they have to. I mean, even if they get in, get in trouble or.
Look, some fines now, for instance, in exchange for the lives that are lost, I think is worth it.
Oh my gosh.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm just thinking. So you look at some of these websites for some of these long-term care facilities, and they look like just the most wonderful places, and we've got all these activities for you to do, and look at our facilities, and that's not always the case. And then when it comes down to like situations like this, and then you find out people they're hiding the sick people,
and they're not like. I think
if you really like. There are some people that shouldn't.
We're like dumbfounded here that this is happening. I didn't know this was a thing. So shame on me for not.
And it's not. I don't think they're regulated. I think they're regulated, but I don't think they're mandated to report their.
I think that somebody
dead or dying.
I think that somebody needs to take a real hard look.
Well, I think this situation has kind of brought some light to that. The fact that it's affecting more older individuals and those with pre-existing conditions is kind of brought some of those things that. You don't usually think about.
Yeah. We have another question. Okay. It's a fantastic question.
So now, a lot of questions today. I like it.
Yeah, it's been a hot second since we did a live show, and we used to do these all the time, and we would just get questions all the time, and it was really a lot of fun. So the question is, now that the government is calling for people to ease back into the workplace, do you have any knowledge on how it can be achieved and to be compliant?
I think it depends on the business a lot.
You think so? Okay.
I think a lot of this depends on kind of your business and
the size of your business too. I think that's a big thing. Like for us, we are
55 people,
55 strong, right? We're still classified as a small company, and and God love Nick and Gio, they took the initiative to ensure that we were all safe, because those folks that are not.
I mean, they allowed us to start working remotely before the stay-at-home order was actually officially issued.
They made the decision to flatten the curve and keep our folks that have to be here and answer these phones, that have to be in the call center, safe. More safe, because I think by reducing our staff by 50% to work from home, we reduced our exposure by like 80%.
Yeah. Well, I think also as a company, they've done, Nick and Gio especially, but like as a company, we've done, I think, our best that we could to adjust to the situation, in how we're working from home. And I can't really speak to what they're going to do, but who knows when we're all going to really be back in the office, who knows if they're going to extend this even longer. But
I think the fact that, I think that it's going to depend on the company size, right? I think it's going to depend on if you're
the industry.
I think
obviously
that
food service is going to have to come back sooner rather than later.
But I think there's going to be special new regulations that are going to have to happen. Like, for instance, I've heard some restaurants that are opening up again in some of the states that are starting to open up. They're making where it's like they have to be, the tables have to be 6 feet apart. There's no condiments, stuff on the table. They bring it in
not multiple use.
Correct, not multiple use. It's single. Even some of them are using plastic.
Right. Great for our environment.
Right. That's a whole other thing. So
we just got that under control in the last 6 weeks.
Did we?
So I think that's a great question, because we've thought a lot about that here in Compliance Line. Because to your point, we're a small company, but it is still the company's priority to keep our employees safe. And So a couple of things we have talked about internally here. So here's, if you're listening, here's your free advice. There's a couple of things we want to make sure that we can do at Compliance Line and companies in general. We want to make sure that we can screen employees for a COVID, whether that's through self-monitoring or that's through forthcoming tests, right? So screening is going to be important. Yep. We want to make sure that we have the ability to clean and disinfect, and that there are policies in place for that. So it can't just be one person's responsibility, because I know our company, we have a cleaning crew that comes in at night, but we're here 24 hours a day. So the people that are here during the day, we're gonna have to come up with some policy to keep them engaged in their own cleaning and disinfecting. We want to make sure that everybody is maintaining social distances, current company excluded
right now.
And we want to make sure that companies have a policy around PPE, whether they can get it. And then, of course, this isn't a huge deal for us, but something to think about, limiting business travel unless necessary.
Absolutely. That's going to be a big one. But I think that's going to be like a real
business travel even a thing anymore.
That's going to come out of this whole situation is so much more stuff is probably going to be virtual.
Yeah, I think that there's going to be a lot of companies going to decide, listen, we did just as well, and we did even maybe sometimes better with virtual and having our folks work remotely. That the old
you have to be in
mindset
or 8 hours might not be.
Whatever they were scared about to be virtual remote, I think it's going to go away. And I think there's going to be a lot of companies that
and then there also might be some. I mean, this is totally sidebar. Companies that pop up to kind of almost regulate the working remotely stuff, like. What was that thing that TikTok we saw earlier? The mouse.
So y'all.
Sorry, I know.
Do you know who's on TikTok?
14-year-olds. Well, you know what, Jen? 35 and 40-year-olds that are stuck in quarantine.
So there's that. So me and the TikTok friends.
I don't get to come into the office every day anymore.
No,
think about my life.
So on TikTok, we Michelle and I we saw this one where it was like apparently some of the companies are monitoring usage or working because apparently if the mouse moves, there's something the computer does something. And one of the things was they had the mouse hung up to a
string attached to a ceiling fan
and the fan on. So
it was moving
so it looked like that they were constantly engaged.
And they were, and it was like, haha, engineers working, or someone like, so that's funny. And a lot of folks are working because the vast majority of people that work remote or companies that have people that work remote, they base it not necessarily on the hours that they're working, which some folks are doing now, but about hitting goals. It's all about hitting.
And that was actually, we had just done a show about staying positive and working from home, and that was one of the things that we talked about was kind of maybe not necessarily putting in your full 8 hours, but making sure that you're still kind of achieving that same output or a similar output to achieve your goals.
Everybody has goals. Everybody has stuff they want to achieve, and as long as the output is being hit, if you're doing it in 30 hours instead of 40 because you're working remotely, you're still, making good on that.
And also, I mean, folks, let me just tell you, if you are not used to working from home and it's not something that you like, especially if you have kids or even an animal, it's difficult. Okay, I have to compete with my 4-year-old child, also my cats that like to put their butt in my face constantly while I'm trying to work. On a go-to meeting. Yep. And then also I'm pretty good at creating my own distractions, guys. Okay. Oh, look, the laundry's done and it's 6 feet away. Let me just get up for a minute and transfer this.
It's definitely challenging, but again, it's that output. But I think that there's absolutely going to be, as kind of how we got down this little rabbit trail was companies going to pop up to be able to help monitor, that piece, or companies making rules and regulations or more output focus.
Well, I think that's a great segue into kind of the last thing that we need to do to bring the employee workforce back into the office is train and communicate. Now, I will talk about training and communication all day long. That's my thing. But we need to make sure that employees that are fearful of coming into the office we're communicating clearly about those things that we just talked about, cleaning and disinfecting, PPEs.
On top of that, though, I mean, that all completely 100%
accurate.
However, but you also still have to think about people with children.
Yes.
You know? So like some of these schools aren't going to be opening up for maybe till the fall.
Right.
You know, or like my son's still in daycare. His daycare might not even open until June, perhaps, maybe even later. I mean, that's just the information I have now. So like that's going to probably keep me at home because my husband still has to go to work every day.
Right. So it's all about flexibility and accommodation.
Yeah.
So
I think there's going to be a lot of that. A lot like personal situation because everyone's always keep your business separate from your personal. I don't think that's not going to be able to happen anymore, even if it was possible before.
Right. It's just communicating those expectations, but also the communication back, like allowing your employees to say,
candid,
and to say, I have a child care issue. This is what I can and can't do, and then making accommodations from them.
Being like reprimanded or punished for some of those.
It's the whole, having consideration. And what was one of the things you guys spoke about from working from home? Compassion.
Yes.
Right? Compassion was big on that.
Oh, you watched our show?
I did. I watched it actually this morning on the way in.
That show's 2 weeks old.
I know it is.
We have a couple of comments that I want to get to, and then I know your Uber's coming in about 25 minutes. So, so one of our comments said, going back to where we're talking about the nursing home, individuals in nursing homes, and they said, this person receives an email every day from his father's assisted living facility indicating 3 positives, both residents and staff, and 3 of the hospitalizations. So some facilities are doing the best that they can.
They're
absolutely.
That's great, though. They're keeping the family informed, so at least they're doing their absolute best to try to keep them comfortable.
I'm thinking that the vast majority of those health, the long-term care and nursing home facilities are they're on top of it. So we have an example of one of our current clients that are going above and beyond. And if anybody watched the webinar today, that it was, this was actually one of the case studies. So we had one of our larger long-term care facilities actually came to us because they made the decision as a company to help save lives of their folks in the homes to have they went to a private lab and said, we want all of our employees tested because there's a lot of people.
Right? Like every time they come in or something?
No, it's not daily. It's like, I forget what the schedule is, but it's like making sure that they're on a regular, because there's a lot of people that are out there that are carriers that don't show symptoms.
Right.
So what's happening is you have these workers going into these facilities that have the folks that are the most vulnerable. Yeah. And so they made a decision, hey, we're going to have everybody tested on a regular basis. And those lab results had to be like, notified within 60 minutes. So within an hour of a positive result, they had to notify, and they're like, we don't have staff members.
We don't have the infrastructure.
We don't have the infrastructure to support that. Can we run that through you? Absolutely. We could use your existing line. They just call us. We create a case. We have a special directive that's part of our process, and we will notify you of these, and you have this information. And within 48 hours, we had that set up and rocking and rolling for them. But those facilities, I think, are more, that's more out there than those folks that are hiding.
Yeah, there's always the negative outliers, and I think those are probably
the ones that are making
always like the smaller group of people.
Right.
Just kind of like the ambulance chasers. That we talk about. Not everybody, is looking to profit from this.
Everybody, they
hide something.
They want to be compliant. They want to keep their folks safe. That's the key.
I think there's just so many unknowns right now this is just such an unprecedented situation that our entire world is going through right now. And it's just creating so many new situations that, you're really just having to.
Do you know how many more compliance and rules and regulations are going to come out of this because of this?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. You're like Jenni.
Yes, I do. I can't wait.
You're preaching to the choir.
We have one final question here, and I think it's a fantastic question. So when we begin returning to work and allow those with underlying conditions to continue to work from home, can HR ask the person the specific condition to see if it matches the CDC list?
Where does that stand in privacy?
So
all right.
So in the HR world, it's no, you cannot specifically ask for medical conditions. It's a violation.
Yep.
What you can do is put out a policy about self-monitoring and list the symptoms and require self-reporting. And just kind of honor code it about that.
Well, again, I think that kind of goes back to what we were just talking about. Most people are probably going to be honest about, there's always those crappy people that'll use an excuse if they can.
Right. One thing that I also want to bring up that I just lost and it went out of my brain. Oh, that's what it was. It's back in my brain. One of the tools that HR uses is the accommodations. So we understand this is happening, whatever this situation is, what accommodations can be made. And that way we're not, of course, asking the specific private, personal, medical history, but we're opening the door for our employees
them so that they can
exactly. We want
like a compromise.
Right. We're not trying to fire people, right? We're not trying to
not because you want to work. It's not for a negative reason. Right. It's not for a malicious reason. It's for the best for them and for the company, right?
Yep. So always, I mean, if all else fails, ask what accommodations you can make for your employees, and then or the employee that comes to you with these situations. And I think that's going to open the door for that conversation about whatever it is, hesitations they have about returning to work.
Yeah, I think another positive that's going to come out of this whole situation is you're going to have a lot more companies that are going to be a lot more open-minded, that were more stringent with that kind of stuff previously, and they're going to be more understanding because they had to make these accommodations because of this just unprecedented situation. So it's going to be interesting.
What a great conversation we had today.
I think we did.
We went almost an hour. We were at the beginning and I was like, we're not going to make it an hour like it's drawn out. But
we have so many great questions from our listeners.
We did have a lot of great questions. If you have any questions that you didn't want read on the air, you can absolutely email them over to us. You can hit ComplianceLive@ComplianceLine.com. I know that's hard for me, especially right now.
And if you're one of our current clients, Michelle and I, feel free to reach out to us directly as well. We're happy to answer any questions that you may have.
And you can email accountmanagement@ComplianceLine.com and reach both of us.
Yep, absolutely. We want to thank our viewers and our listeners. We will be posting this video up on YouTube and the podcast, the audio up on your favorite podcast platforms, just in case you were not able to catch this live.
But you should have, because it was amazing.
It was a lot of fun. Will you guys come back and do this again?
Absolutely.
Can we
have another happy hour time?
Yeah.
I think
maybe we should do this
once a month.
Once a month?
Nick, Geo.
Can we do this once a month?
Request made.
We're single-handedly keeping Uber in business.
That's right.
And WhiteClaw, evidently.
Yes, and WhiteClaw. Yes.
Yep.
Right.
By the way, folks, this is only my second WhiteClaw ever in the history of WhiteClaws.
And I've made her a believer. So
yes. Not bad.
Thank you so much to our pre-production team. They are always so helpful. Michelle leads it.
That's me.
And thanks to our post-production team, Amalia leads that. So I know she's listening.
Let's not forget our actual production.
Production team.
And our
amazing host.
Yes.
You're very welcome.
The hostess with the mostest.
Please follow us. Y'all are ridiculous. Please follow us on our social medias. We are on Twitter @ComplianceLive. And on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram @ComplianceLine. There you're going to find a lot of helpful tips, some goofy pictures, some great little insights into our wonderful company here. We would be happy to have you join us and in our family.
Part of our network.
Yeah, please do.
Definitely.
Please feel free to reach out to us. Well, you guys got anything else?
I think we're good. I've really enjoyed this.
One more, actually.
Yeah.
We
do have Uber coming.
Right, yes, Uber is coming. All right, thanks. Oh, we got to thank you. Thanks. Very kind of you. All right, guys, for Compliance Live, I'm Amanda Hosenfeld.
I'm Jenny Fran.
And Michelle Zahowski.
And stay compliant.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Hey, hold still while I turn this off. Hold on. End webinar.